Welcome to Brandon Hall Group's Excellence at Work podcast. You will hear from industry leaders covering innovative, cutting-edge business, learning, and HR topics that weave current market research and technology into each episode.
Well, hi, everyone. This is Michael Rochelle, the Chief Strategy Officer here at the Brandon Hall Group. And I am fortunate enough to catch up with Jen Jackson, who's the Senior VP of Customer Service at Litmos. Welcome, Jen, and welcome to our audience. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be on.
And just want to kind of mention that Jen is a seasoned professional here. She has over 20 years experience in customer success and building and optimizing post-sales teams for private equity and venture capital SaaS organizations. So it's a pretty interesting topic what we're going to cover here today. I think what we want to really get at is reskilling and upskilling client experience teams as a key component of a revenue enablement strategy. And it sounds like, Jen, you've done this a few times. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and also a little bit more about what you're doing at Litmos.
Yeah, absolutely. I joined Litmos about 15 months ago as a part of the divestiture, leading the entire customer experience org from services, success to support. And so a lot of what we did with the divestiture is kind of look at our customers, how we wanted to engage, kind of did our success organization need to be a revenue growth engine? Did we need to partner with sales, or how did we really want to work through that? And so in looking at the skills and the talents of our team, we did have some folks who had experience with the revenue generation of kind of being a part of a growth engine and success. And we had some folks that didn't. So we had to do some what I call upskilling, because we were building to the skill set. We were adding to the skills they had. And so, what we did is we identified what were the most important things as a part of the listening for opportunities, the growth, opportunities, the value extension, things like that, and put together some training plans to help them.
Now, when you're working on these approaches and programs, like what are the things that your customers bring to you in terms of trying to understand how to be the most successful that they can?
So when we work with customers, we really start with the why. What are you looking for as far as your teams, your customers, things like that? And we think about it in use cases. So are you training your department to be a part of a larger initiative, which is compliance, regulatory, things like that, that you would expect to align with your vertical? But we're also looking at, what's your use case with your customers? Do you have a need to train your customers? Say, if you're a software organization and you're releasing new products, do you need to train your customers on it? If you work with partners externally and partners work with customers, there's a bunch of different use cases that you can talk about, external as internal. And so we really try to talk through, what kicked you off on this journey to explore learning and capabilities, and then to talk about the business model as a whole to see, if we can capture all the use cases and build a program that can not only work internally, but in some cases, in many cases, can be replicated externally for those use cases as well.
And it's interesting that you bring that up because it's so complicated trying to do this. And really the importance of enabling this whole approach and being able to, you see oftentimes organizations really struggle with helping these very specific types of people within their, their organization. So like, how do you kind of bring this all together? And, how do you get the teams like this to be able to feel like they're strongly connected as they can to the business success? They're driving revenue, they're creating customer growth and loyalty. What are the uniqueness of these people, and how do you address that with what you offer at Litmos?
Well, I think unless you're a business that is just starting out, which we do have that in some cases, you have a good understanding of what your ICP is. So what's your ideal customer? What are you going after externally? What are your value and selling points, and how can we kind of align with your sales organization and things like that, your revenue enablement? And then internally, it's as far as, job, skill, core elements of, the career development that we want for all of our employees. And so again, it's, what's your core ethos? What are your business strategies? And then beyond that, what are your goals for your employees internally? Are you need to define skills and levels to align with job categorization within your organization? Are you at what level? Are you midway, partway through, and you're looking to extend or update what you have? And then, we have to talk about, do you have content? Do you want us to help you create content? Things like that. I think it seems daunting and overwhelming when you think about it. But like any project that you do within an organization, if you start with planning and discovery and talking about why do we need to do this? How is this important to the business as far as our strategic goals and our deliverables there, as well as internally, why are we doing this? What are we trying to achieve? Is it just, to stay in compliance with X regulation? Is it investing in long-term employees and employee loyalty, engagement, and career development? Gathering all of that information and learning about their business really helps us set them up for success.
And when you're working with these teams, they have very unique needs for learning, right? They kind of are the quintessential example of having to learn in the flow of work.
I actually would say the inverse. I would say there are some core foundational things that we see consistently across the verticals and the business size. And then I would say that there are definitely some organizations that have some uniqueness to it, but if every organization has a sales department, then there needs to be negotiation conversations and, selling the value and perhaps some of the engagements that you would want as far as the enablement. For success organizations as a whole, you want them to have engagement and soft skills with your customers. Anybody with a support organization is going to want to have, processing, transactional, working with customers, responsiveness KPIs. So I would say there's a lot of foundations that actually do grow across all the verticals, all of the different business sizes. I think it's when you start to drill down in that discovery and planning part, you start to identify where there are niches or where there are custom needs or things that are specific to your industry, your vertical, or your specific way of doing business.
So let's talk about more about the specifics of the way they learn. We talk about coaching, simulations, gamification, micro learning. What have you found has been the best recipe for helping these teams?
I think I would say that before you get into talking about measuring, you have to talk about the content and again, your goals there. So, um, once we determine your learning path and your approach, the modalities that you're going to use, then you can bring in coaching after the fact. So, if you have a program where you need them to watch a video or take a test or review some content and then some coaching for some real life scenarios, I think you have to think about that when you're defining your learning path and what that looks like. That's a part of it. When you talk about gamification, that's really at a higher level where you can create that for your teams to have that natural competitiveness. If you want to create certification, badges, things like that, to say, for example, our CEO is the proud owner of the massive amounts of badges that we have because he is a lifelong learner. He is the epitome of a lifelong learner. And so he spends the majority of his time checking and testing our new content, defining and working in our new learning paths and things like that. So if we were to log into our product right now, he would be the top of our leaderboard and he holds that title it's very important to him. Within my own organization, we have some of the similar things. Like we went through an exercise where these are our core skills, these are our skill paths, and these are the fun little badges that go along with it. We are superheroes, so we compete at our super. I am Phoenix, and we've got like Thor and all the different kind of guys. But we do that to bring the fun into it and the engagement into it. And it creates, you know, training can be sometimes a little dry in digestion. But if you break up the content and the delivery and you add in the different modalities where we're not just reading pages, where we're not watching video after video, where we're kind of putting all of these things together to keep me engaged, then we can create some fun with it and we can create some just natural competitiveness, which I think helps also get your team to engage together, because they will naturally prod and poke, and you get more engagement and a better completion rate. So I think it all goes together, but it starts with what you're trying to do.
And being what you're trying to do, it seems like everyone is calling it upskilling and reskilling these teams. Would you describe it the same way?
Um, I would say more often we hear about career pathing and the evolution of your skills versus upskilling and reskilling. In I would say most go-to-market organizations, we hear a lot of reskilling, where you have like different, you have, SDRs, BDRs, you have account reps, you have account managers, and sometimes you move the pieces around. And so that's a reskilling or an upskilling, depending on the part that you're doing there. I think once you get further into the more specific content as it relates to actual career pathing, it's more about pathing and additional skills and building your, kind of education skill set as a whole.
And so when you're working with these folks, do you find that time constraints and condition constraints, location, ability to access the learning? I mean, these are chief challenges for such a unique group, isn't it?
Well, because we're cloud-based, we've actually been able to, and I think this would be true just in the industry of itself, moving away from on-premise or live or needing to bring people into one location for training. Training has evolved to, interactive live trainings, to virtual sessions, to hosted kind of webinar type trainings. And so it actually reduces your training spend and gives you much more versatility. As an example, when I train my organizations, I am in 3 different regions and multiple different time zones. And so what I'm able to do is create a training that can actually be played across the different time zones. And so everybody gets the same training instead of one person going to a training and then somebody else getting a readout of the training and having to go do that. So it's a recorded session that everybody can watch. And then after that, I do exactly what you said, coaching and scenario sessions in each of the region to ensure, content is delivering, message delivering, and things like that. So I would actually say the cost of training your organization now has reduced significantly. And I would say the value that you bring and the ability to reach uh, international team members, different time zones, deskless workers, all of these types of things. I think the evolution of training has really followed the way that we work.
And let's talk a little bit about the whole idea of how these teams access learning. So a lot of them like to see their learning management system integrated with their CRM. Do you find that that's the same thing?
Yep. So as a standard, what we see is the learning system integrated with their HRIS system, with their HR system, think ADP, Workday, that type of thing, and also integrated with their CRM, Salesforce type situations. So, for example, when we add a new employee and they are added into ADP, that's immediately fed into our learning system, which is then tied into our CRM and some of our other softwares that we have internally. So we can see the full picture and evolution of an employee from when they start and their continued life cycle as they grow and develop in their career. And I think most people are looking to do that so that they have consistency and visibility throughout the employee's life cycle.
And I think we want to talk outcomes,
Mhm.
right? So people are trying to say, okay, we're putting this effort into really trying to offer a super focused, super hyper personalized learning to these teams, we get a lot of outcome asks. Like, what are the metrics I'm chasing? And people bring up things like, I want to increase employee satisfaction. I want to make higher productivity take place. I want to improve customer service, better cost savings, NPS, really to kind of transform the customer experience. How difficult is that to make that connection from jumping from learning, right to these very specific business metrics?
Not at all. I would use, let's talk about a sales organization. Let's say, the time that you either hire an employee or decide that they're going to move to this role is critical. And if you're a company that's growing at a fast rate, then you want to get people identified, trained, and live in a very short amount of time. Historically, if a sales organization had multiple locations, they would have to bring employees into one location, figure that out, do the timing. It was operationally costly and timing wasn't always, so it impacted the business. So let's say, I hire a rep, it could be as much as 2 quarters before they're live if we have to time that, right? Maybe they're doing other things in training, but they're not fully effective. We have a customer who was experiencing just that. What we did was we met with them, defined what they needed, created a program for them, and they were able to reduce their time to value with new employees 22% and tie it specifically to the training and the time to value hire and things like that. And so there are multiple ways that you can tie that for career pathing and skilling. Let's use support as an example. In most support organizations, you'll have a tier 1, a tier 2, something like that, some kind of segmentation, or maybe it's regional where you've got folks that are doing initial triage, trying to solve, simple things. And then there's maybe something that's a little complex that needs to go higher. When you first hire support people, I've seen quite commonly lately, they're fully remote. And so it comes back into, in the days where you would bring in a class of 30 people and they would go through like a 3 or 6 weeks training. Well, you don't have that anymore. You can create this virtual training. You can either do self-paced where they go at their own and there's some knowledge checks and touch points, or you can virtually hold those sessions and do that. And you can cut your time to live, in half. 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever that might be. And you can also include your onboarding, right? So me as an individual, if I'm a new employee, I can do my training, my onboarding, learning about the organization, learning about the systems, learning about the people in a virtual situation and transition right into my training versus, spending a week with HR and then spending a week, getting to know this part of the business and learning about it and then learning my core competencies. We can build learning paths that bring that all together. And so the operational savings and the effectiveness of it, I think, of bringing the onboarding and that together is a good one. And when you measure your support agents, most of us are measuring CSAT. We're looking at how that does. So, I've managed support, I think, my entire career. And so what I'm looking for is tracking my new employees in the first 45 days that they're live on the floor. How are their, engagement times? How are their survey results, soft skills, things like that? And because I create that content in my initial learning path, I can tie the quality scores right back to the effectiveness of that course. And so it really gives you the ability to do a lot more with less and actually measure at milestones your effectiveness of the content that you're providing.
All excellent points. So what's the Litmos difference? How is it unique working with Litmos and making this happen?
Yeah. So in my previous history, I've actually purchased Litmos 3 times to bring into my customer organizations for a very specific reason. Uh, when you buy Litmos, you buy the platform, but we also have content. So instead of me buying a platform and then having to create my own content or go source my own content, I can do it all in one system. And beyond that, let's say I do want to create my own content. that I have some very specific things that I want to express to customer experience organizations in the way that I engage with customers, the outcomes that we deliver and how we measure to our customers. And so I generally do create my own content. We have a tool, a content authoring tool that allows me to create that content and bring it into learning paths I've already designed with ease. We have a very straightforward, I can do many things, but sometimes technology challenges me a bit. And I am that stubborn person where I want to figure out myself. I don't want to call anyone. And, what I found over the years is as our product has evolved, our knowledge content and our support of customers and things like that has evolved. And so, I can go in today and create a course and publish it into existing things, push it out to teams. And I can generally do that, after I've created the content I want, I can make all of those changes within 20 minutes, if even that. And that's if I'm multitasking and not paying attention. So for me, it was the stability of the platform, the quick and easy access to the content, the ability to create my own content, and then having it integrated with all of the systems that I use so that I can track the skilling and up leveling of my team.
It sounds like Litmos is the right platform to work with and the right company.
I'm not going to tell you otherwise. Like, listen, if you catch me in an elevator and you're talking about training, I'm going to tell you, hey, I've got something you might want to look at. It's a good software and it's been around for a long time. It's a really solid platform, which I appreciate.
Well, Jen, you have a unique perspective, both being there and using it in past lives. We appreciate your time today and just sharing your experiences and the things that you think are important in helping these CX teams really to be everything they need to be for their organization. So thanks for joining today.
Thank you. I appreciate you giving me a voice.
Okay. All right. Well, for our audience, until the next time, this is Michael Rochelle again, Chief Strategy Officer of Brand Hall Group. Thanks for your time. Bye-bye.